Three certainties in life: death, taxes, and Jordan Henson. And that wasn't the only drama from this week's football. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. My name is Adam, and as you can tell, there's no Rory this week. However, I'm joined by two of my best mates, and they're going to take us through all of the actions from this week, as well as Serie A and Premier League. And then we've also got the added notion of the FA Cup as well. So let me introduce you to my good friend. He calls himself Andrea. It's not Belotti. It's the Fiorentina fan account. That is Andrea. So, Andrea, how are you doing this evening?
Good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great to have you on, and I'm sure we'll reminisce about tonight's result as well as more.
Yes.
So it'd be good to talk about that and a lot of the developments that have happened in Serie A. But more importantly, I'm also joined by Ben. Ben, how are you doing this evening as well?
Very good, mate. I'm still buoyed by Sunday's result against Aston Villa. I've had a bit of I've had a spring in my step all week, so feeling good going into the weekend. There's lots has happened. There's going to happen this weekend. It's pretty big, so I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Definitely. So, let's talk you through the key kind of stories. Obviously, we've got the Champions League, and like London buses, two come at once, as we had two penalty shootouts. One for the fortune of an English club in Arsenal, but one to the misfortune of Inter Milan, who, unfortunately exited at this stage. But we've also got to talk about the Premier League. We also saw Bournemouth take on Luton in doing a Istanbul-esque performance. We'll also kind of preview the weekend's game. So we've got some fascinating ties in Serie A. We'll kind of reminisce with Andrea about Fiorentina and if they stand a chance of maybe getting themselves back into the top six mix. But we've also got the big game of Inter taking on Napoli. And Ben, in the Premier League, obviously a few fixtures, not as many, because we've also got the FA Cup and we've got a juicy tie with Man United taking on Liverpool. So, we'll be talking about this and potentially a little bit about the England squad announcement. So some interesting picks there as well. But join us after this break as we'll go through all of that and more. We'll see you on the other end. And we are back. And yes, the Champions League did take place. It was probably the most fascinating of the last 16 ties. And as I kind of introduced, guys, obviously we had two penalty shootouts. It's the first time since the 2016 Champions League final, which was a fascinating stat that I came across. Another one that came across was also the fact that in the last 5 of penalty shootouts in the Champions League, Atletico Madrid have featured in 4 of them. So probably no surprises that they had another penalty shootout this week. But obviously it wouldn't do any justice if we didn't talk about Arsenal getting through courtesy of obviously the penalty shootouts and a fantastic kind of performance from David Raya. We'll talk about that and more. But first, obviously, we'll talk about my co-host, Rory, who's not with us, but he has kindly left us a voice note. So we will digest that alongside my friends here. But let me play that for everyone to listen.
Hello, guys. Sorry I can't join you for the show this evening. But I have just about found some time in my day to sit and analyse the fantastic scenes that took place at the Emirates on Tuesday night. If you can hear noise in the background, I apologise. I'm currently walking through a very warm Milan in my Arsenal jacket. Absolutely loving life. So my takeaways from the game last night mainly are, let's start with Porto, an incredibly well-coached team. Was impressed with Conceição tactically. I think he's arguably done the best job on us of any club this season. Much harder games than against Liverpool than against City. I feel like he really nullified our threats at set pieces. The wing backs in particular were incredibly effective against Saka, against Martinelli in the first leg, and to a point against Trossard on Tuesday night. And I think the players that really stood out, obviously Pepe, the same age as Arteta, absolutely running things in the Champions League. That guy is a physical freak. Pepe, the other one, nice and energetic in midfield, constant threat, was really impressed with him. And Evan Nilsson in the second leg I felt was a lot better than in the first leg. Was a bit more of a threat. And Porto, as much as they tried to just play for penalties, I think that was definitely their aim, they caused us problems across both legs. So I think in general very impressed with them. very, very difficult team to get past, but we did it. Conceição as a person, I'll quote Mourinho and say I prefer not to speak. For Arsenal, Martin Odegaard put down the marker as a world-class player. I think with that performance, not only the assist, but his constant pressing, his commitment, his ability to find space, everything about that game and his performance last night and in general recently have just been outstanding. I think he's the perfect captain for the club. I'm just so happy to have him at Arsenal. Elsewhere, I think Gabriel and Saliba at the back were absolute rocks. An incredible performance from them. Again, showing that they're one of the best centre-back partnerships in the world at the moment. But I think our performance on the whole as a team wasn't actually that impressive. We weren't able to really be ourselves and express ourselves. But the important thing is that we got the goal and we kept Porto under control, really. Going to the penalties, David Raya, he needed that moment and we needed him to have that moment. I think this is the moment that he gets taken on board by the Arsenal fans. He has that defining moment, that night where it's, do you remember when, David Raya? And I think just beyond the penalty saves, his performance all round was very, very good. He made some great saves, dominating his area. His distribution was fantastic. I think you can see he's being taken to the hearts of Arsenal fans, and it's a shame for Ramsdale, but seeing the scenes at the end of the game where they were hugging, and you could see that Ramsdale, above all things, seems just like a really good bloke and is genuinely happy for him. So I was delighted to see that. For Arteta, I promise this won't go on too much longer. I'll try. For Arteta, I think this is a huge moment as well. Obviously, his record in the Europa League has been pretty terrible. We got knocked out by Olympiacos by a last-minute goal. We got knocked out by Sporting Lisbon last year on penalties at home. I can't lie, as this game was getting to extra time, I was getting deja vu of that Sporting game last year. But for Arteta to break this round of 16 curse for Arsenal and for himself, it's just absolutely monumental. Obviously, penalties do come down to a bit of a lottery, but you can see that we clearly practiced for it. The fact we've changed penalty takers so much this season means that in a penalty shootout we do have options, right? None of the people who stepped up I was particularly afraid of missing. Even Declan Rice, who might not be the first person you'd think of for penalties, calmly tucked it away. Just incredible coaching, incredible preparation, and for Arteta this is a real marker put down. The last thing I want to talk about is the referee. I thought he was brilliant. I never had a clue what he was going to do next. 1 second it wasn't a foul, the next second the exact same thing was a foul. But what I did like is he genuinely let the game play. It was a very physical game, a lot of aggro, a lot of sting in it, and he didn't really overreact. I think if we'd have got the typical judicious European referee who gives a card for everything, we could have ended up with three reds on each team. So I think he managed it really well, if not a bit schizophrenically. So overall, fantastic result. Absolutely delighted with it, and I cannot wait for the draw on Friday. I have a funny feeling, and I've talked to Tommy about it, that we're going to get into, provided they get through. At the time of speaking, that game is still happening, but I have a funny feeling we're going to get into. The only team I don't want is Man City.
And that was Rory in a rather atmospheric Milan, and sounding a bit like what I think everyone thought was Pepe after that extra time period. He sounded quite knackered just talking about Arsenal there as well. But if I start off by kind of talking to you, Andrea, about Arsenal, I mean, it was a very tight game. Obviously, I think there was some anticipation that Sergio Conceição was going to play a quite tactical game, and you could see by the fact that Arsenal only had 4 shots on target, that really tells you about how tight the game actually was. And I thought there were some standout performances from the likes of Jakub Kiwior as well as Gabriel. I thought Gabriel was immense for Arsenal, and this, considering this probably was a game that was going to be more attacking minded from an Arsenal perspective. But do you think we learned a lot about Arsenal and their kind of resilience and how potentially they've probably grown from last season as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think in particular, like you mentioned, the resilience, because in previous years you'd see that they would like lose on penalties or they would concede. But I thought this time they were well rounded throughout the whole 90 extra time. And to be honest, they did deserve the win in the end. I think they just edged it. Porto could have gone away with the win as well, but I think they did edge it. I just think this time as well around, they've got some players in there like I think Odegaard we have to mention. Like that assist was unbelievable. The magic feet for
Yeah,
that assist. So we've got players now that can actually win games as well. So I think they've kind of elevated their play as well. Saka looks good as well. But even when it was going against them and they're not, playing as fluid as they have been in the Premier League, for example, they still managed to find a way. And that's what big teams do, teams that, win games. So they should be really happy. And I think it's definitely progress because it's like I said, it's resilience that they never had before, and it's shown throughout the team, and it's also come down from a lot from Arteta as well. I think it implements from him as well. So it's as a unit they seem very resilient and much more of a unit than previous years as well.
definitely. And Ben, normally when I associate Arsenal kind of playing extra time and penalties, they don't normally tend to do so well when they're at the Emirates. So this felt like a massive burden that's come off them as soon as they won that tie. And you kind of saw the emotions, not just on the pitch, but obviously in the stands itself as well. But massive kind of respect to Porto as well for the way they approached it. I think potentially, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I thought they actually played a little bit more expansively than I thought they would approach it. I thought they were going to do a lot more of the shithousery and time waste, for example, but they actually gave Arsenal a threat at times, and a lot of times that they did counter, it was a lot of kind of considered effort in terms of how they approached it in that final third, especially when they were deliberately kind of playing the ball long, right?
Yeah, I agree. I didn't actually think there was. I know Arsenal fans are going to be frustrated at the nature of the way that maybe Porto approached it at times because you're 1-0 down at home. It's a huge game. That pressure kind of does massively come into it. But from a neutral perspective, well, I say neutral, I'm a Spurs fan. I was effectively a Porto fan that night. But I didn't think there was too much gamesmanship or anything really from Porto. There's been a lot of talk about the referee and how he handled it. Again, I thought he actually let a lot go and let the game flow. And I think the way that Porto actually managed the game was very good. I thought they were set up very well. I thought both Pepes really. One Pepe at the back showing his experience, and I thought the Pepe midfield showed, or sort of that sort of attacking midfielder showed a real sense of threat on the break, and they had some, a handful of good opportunities. There was one in the second half where I think it was Kivior or maybe it was Gabriel had to slide in and make a block. At the second opportunity when Pepe had a shot save. I think it would have been offside anyway, but that was a chance. They really opened up Arsenal in that opportunity, and I think it was just at a point in the game when maybe they just had the disallowed goal, Arsenal. It was just leading up to that, and it was a point where the frustration was sort of building over, and there's always these opportunities in games where that happens to the home team, that the pressure's on, and I think Porto did quite well to sense that opportunity, but they also equally did as well to take it as far as they did and take it to extra time because, as kind of Rory alluded to in his voice note, the difference on the night was Odegaard, because without him, they wouldn't have found that one moment of quality. It was a ridiculous pass and a really good finish from Trossard, but that was one of the only real times they were able to open up Porto, which just, again, highlights how impressive they were over the two legs. And, they'll sort of consider themselves unlucky to go out, really. But, I think, like you say, obviously, in very recent memory, last 16 European tie against the Portuguese side at home going to penalties at the Emirates didn't go as well for Arsenal. And I think in terms of what they're trying to achieve this season, obviously in the Champions League rather than the Europa League, and in another title race, I think psychologically that is massive for them. And I think you could see that kind of release. And I know, if they'd have gone out, then I think it would have been a huge blow because people would have said, well, how can you not get past Porto? And there has been a little bit of, well, it was only Porto. You sort of scrape through against them on penalties. But I think in those knockout games, it really doesn't matter. As long as you win and as long as you get through, it doesn't matter. And I think you could tell by the release at the end from the fans and the players especially, really, how much of a boost and how much of a hurdle that was for them to overcome. And I think, no one will want to play them in the quarterfinals. And as much as that pains me to say it, they've got a good chance. It'll be very interesting to see how that draw kind of goes tomorrow. And obviously, we'll talk about some of the other ties, but the draw as a whole is set up fascinating. Like some of the ties that could be in there, and I think you're now potentially looking at like an Arsenal City, maybe if that happens in the quarterfinal. I know Arsenal won't want that, but I don't think City won't either. So, but psychologically, I think massive for Arsenal. I think it would be massive for them with the kind of as we're sort of heading to the crux of the season.
Yeah, and I was kind of going to allude to that around how much confidence maybe Arsenal will take into the next game or next game round, should we say, in this competition. But before we kind of do that, Andrea, Sergio Conceição is a man that I've been really impressed with over the coming season, not just this season. He's done fantastically well as well with Porto in the league domestically. But obviously, there's been a lot of rumours about him potentially going to Lazio as a replacement for Maurizio Sarri, which we'll talk about later. But I think there's more than just the manager. Obviously, there's certain players there that are definitely going to be on the lips of a lot of European clubs, like Ben alluded to earlier, Pepe. And we're talking about the attacking Pepe as opposed to the defensive one. But I think even the defensive one wouldn't do a bad job for most clubs right now. But yeah, with Conceição, do you feel like his next step is a bigger club than where he's currently at?
Yeah, 100%. And I think with Porto currently, like I feel like they're at a level where perhaps he can't take him as far as he has at the moment. I don't know. I just feel like they have, especially now with, like you said, there's going to have players where they're going to end up being sold. I was actually quite impressed with like Wendell as well at fullback. Like they've got an all-round really good team. I feel like Wendell handled Saka really well, and overall was just very impressive. But what I like about the Conceição team as well is just that unity, that quality that they have as well. It might not be the most quality players, but he can get the best out of all of them. And like we saw today, yesterday, but Pepe at 41, unbelievable. He had so much energy even into the last second of the game. So, but in terms of next step, I could definitely see like a Serie A move would be perfect for him, like a Lazio, like you said. It would definitely be a different environment, different feel, but then more opportunity to actually expand his knowledge and his style in a different league as well, which in Serie A, for example, he would suit perfectly. And I wouldn't rule out Premier League either, because I also think his style could work well in Premier League as well. But overall, he's definitely at the stage now where he has to look at that next job. And yeah, definitely would say that.
A little chink in his armour, though, Ben, is his comments after the match, where he kind of alluded to the fact that maybe Arteta said some personal stuff. Now, this isn't the first time that he's kind of done this after defeat. He did it with Thomas Tuchel, for example. He did it the same with Pep Guardiola as well. It did feel a bit immature. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it seems like it's a common theme that when he's got a certain defeat like this manner, he kind of deflects by kind of alluding to the fact that they use some dirty tactics on the sidelines. But do you think that will deter a lot of suitors off him?
Yeah, I think so. I found it all pretty strange, to be honest. It was all very playground sort of stuff. And I think that, I do think, again, like I said before, I'm coming at this as a neutral, but obviously there is a loaded element of, me being a Spurs fan. But I don't think Arteta would have ever really said anything like that, because why would he? Why would he stoop that low? I do think Mikel Arteta can sometimes. I don't think he's the most dignified manager, and I don't think he handles himself in the best way. So when it first came out, I wasn't necessarily surprised, but at that time I wasn't aware of what he'd done before with Guardiola and Tuchel, and then immediately that sort of springs to you that he's just a bit of a sore loser. He's obviously a very emotional guy. You can sort of tell that, and I think you've seen that with. There was that video going around from when they won the title. Was it a couple of years ago? And there was the video of him in the changing rooms with a cigar. He's a guy that I think you can tell he, I guess, indulges in sort of the emotional side of the game, let's say. And I do think I think it's such a strange thing to me of like those kind of deflection tactics after you've actually shown like a really good account of yourself as well. And if it was just one occasion, then I think you'd be far more inclined to believe him and sort of think, well, why would Arteta do that? That's very, that's not how you should handle yourself as a top class manager. But the fact that there's been multiple occasions where he's kind of accused 3 managers, all Premier League managers at the time, because I'm guessing it was when Tuchel was at Chelsea. It is very odd. Like it's very, very strange. And I just think, why would you not kind of use that opportunity? And I'm sure he did. I didn't read all the press conference, but kind of you like let the headlines be about the fact that you really gave it a go and you were proud of your team. I don't really understand that, and I think as a fan, and I know it's easy to get caught up in what your manager says or does. You know, Tottenham fans, Arsenal fans, like two clubs that love their managers. We all, you know, you hang on to every word they say a lot of the time, and especially in kind of what they embody. But I think there is an element of as a fan, surely you would look at that and think, well, hang on a minute, like, why is this happening again? So it's a bit of an odd one, really. It's just a bit sour grapes. Like you've given a good account of yourself. You should be proud of the players and just let it be about that. Let that be the narrative rather than this. It's just weird.
100%. We'll go into final words then. Andrea, obviously, massive win for Arsenal in the grand scheme of things. Where do we think they'll kind of continue this run now? Do we think next round is going to be very much dependent on who they face, or do we think this will kind of give them the confidence that actually it doesn't really matter who they face, they can take on whoever and pull off a similar kind of style of performance?
It's difficult because on one hand, I do agree that they've come a long way. And one thing I was going to say as well is that in that Porto game, they didn't once feel like they panicked. And that was big as well, because I think Arsenal in previous years panicked a lot and they'd try and force moves and stuff. So I think in that respect that they've got that potential in those big games to stay a bit more composed. But that's my only question would be if they would continue that against a team like Real Madrid, if they're 1 or 2 behind, if they would like panic a bit and go, that would be my only concern. So against a bigger team like that, I would worry for them. But certainly if they had a favourable draw, they definitely can. But regardless, against a big team, if they stay what they do in terms of composure and the style of play they have, the fluidity, they can get that out there. They can definitely challenge teams. And but I, in theory, think that it might be difficult with a big team, especially like a Man City or Real Madrid in the quarterfinal.
And Ben, question to you. Obviously, Arteta is still in the title race, so to speak, right now. Do you think this deflects their efforts, or do you think this is an added kind of piece to kind of help build that form going into the latter stages of the league?
I think they've got to embrace it. I don't think they can allow it to be a distraction, because I think that every game between now and the end of the season for Arsenal, that they've got a hard run. They've got to play City in the league. They've got to come to Tottenham. They've got to play Chelsea. They've got to play Aston Villa. There's big games for them to play. Every game at this point, I know it's a cliche, is going to feel like a final. So I kind of think that they have to allow it to be, they have to ride the kind of wave and just enjoy it rather than kind of fear what it could do to their title charge, because quite often the most important thing at football at the end of the season is momentum, and I don't think they can allow it to be a distraction. I think they have to harness it, and because you've seen the effect that Arteta's had on Arsenal in terms of creating that atmosphere in the ground and creating that connection between the fans and the players. And I think the fans will be there. They'll be there every single game for Arsenal. So I think they'll probably, although they did fade away last season and they could do that again, it's going to be big for them, and please let them do that. But I think they've just got to embrace it. I think they've just got to embrace it, go face it head on, and just embrace the challenge and just see where they end up. Because I think that's all the fans will be asking for them to do. I know Arteta's been there a while now, and there is this pressure for them to win something big. But I think that there's always going to be an opportunity again next season with Klopp out the league and all that sort of stuff for them to really, create almost a bit of almost a dynasty with City to kind of, they had a tight race with them last year. They're having another tight race with them this year. With Liverpool potentially out the picture for next season, I don't think they can put too much pressure on it now. But I do think that they've just got to embrace it, enjoy it, and see where they end up. That's all you can ask for, really, from a fan's perspective, at least, anyway.
Definitely. And well done to Arsenal for progressing to the next round. Something that I think was a bit of a hoodoo that was hanging over them for a while now, given that they haven't been in the Champions League for a while. If I quickly then allude to the other game that took place on Tuesday night, Andrea, another of Italian teams knocked out at this stage of the competition. Napoli didn't have great omens going into this, but the kind of question I'm going to face to you is basically, I can't quite make out if Napoli were unlucky on the night or if they made it easy for Barcelona. I mean, we have the amazing story of Fermin Lopez, who scored his first goal for Barcelona on his first appearance for Barcelona as well in a Champions League match, which is absolutely crazy. But we also had goals from Cancelo as well as Robert Lewandowski securing the win for Barcelona. A solitary goal from Rachmani, which was a well taken effort. It has to be said, it was well taken. And obviously, in the midst of all of that, then we've got also the context of Aurelio De Laurentiis offering his players a £10 million bonus to progress to the next stage. Obviously, I don't know if he'll be disappointed that they didn't make it to the next stage, given that he kind of gave off mixed vibes around the Club World Cup competition and the fact that obviously they handed it on the plate to Juventus. But yeah, did Napoli make it easy for Barcelona, or was it just a case of Barcelona playing quite well on the night?
I thought Barca played well, but I do think it was mainly Napoli being poor. The first 2 goals were very too easy to concede. Yeah. And in a big tie like that, away from home, to go 2-0 down, everything's going to go against you. The fans, everything, the atmosphere. And I think it was just too easy. And it's just been typical Napoli this season. The amount of goals they've conceded that have been very easy. I thought Cancelo in particular easily just ran past their whole team pretty much down the wing. And it was just too easy. It was unfortunate because, Barcelona had a few key players missing, but it's just, I also felt like Napoli were nervous and also perhaps respected Barcelona a bit too much as well, which is interesting to say, because they normally are in their prime, they're more dominant, they're more, they get on with the game. But I think overall they lacked that kind of intensity. But again, it's just because of the confidence they have. But to concede 2 goals that quick and that easy is too damaging against the team. Barcelona, they do have really quality players on their day, and at home they're quite confident of winning games. So it's too easy and too not ideal for the start. But I was just disappointed overall with the whole performance. The cohesion wasn't there, intensity in particular, and it just kind of faded away for them. The Romani goal gave them hope, but in theory, it was just a consolation. It just didn't feel like, even with that goal, I guess they did kind of come into it a bit after the goal, but realistically, you kind of felt that Barcelona did have the win at some point, and they eventually scored the third, and it was game over. So, but overall, yeah, disappointing from Napoli, because it was a big moment to kind of silence the critics, and they let it go past them. And I think that's going to frustrate a lot of Napoli fans, that at least the one game to kind of actually do something, and they didn't show any passion to win it. Like that would disappoint me if I was a Napoli fan.
Yeah, certainly. And Ben, I think we all ended up with egg on our faces. I think we all predicted Napoli to go through on this tie. But if we kind of return and look at the kind of Barcelona team, do we think those teams that are left in the competition will fancy taking on this Barcelona side? Because we know about their league domestic form hasn't been great. And as evident in this match, I think it's because Napoli's key players like Osimhen didn't really turn up on the night. I mean, he had a terrible game by all accounts. Kvaratskhelia wasn't at his prime for this match. And I think, even like performances of like Anguissa was missing on the night, where he wasn't his solid self. And I think obviously if Napoli had Zielinski on the pitch, potentially that goes a different way. But yeah, I mean, do we think teams are going to fancy taking their chances of this Barcelona side?
I think so, and I think that's why Napoli will be so disappointed, because they actually had the far more experienced team on the night as well. Like, you go through that Barca side, I think it was the young centre back Kubasi, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah,
like 17 years of age, young Spanish product of the academy. Like, he was man of the match. That back four isn't, Araujo's obviously been quality for a number of years for Barca, but having Kubasi alongside him, there's Barcelona are gettable, and Christensen playing in midfield. It's a young team. They've got the experience, obviously, of Lewandowski up front, who scored on the night, but it's not. I don't think Barcelona will be massively feared, and I think that's why Napoli will kind of look at it. And although they've not been themselves this year, they'll look at that as a real missed opportunity. To be fair, I think that if either of these sides got through, I think along with Dortmund or PSV, whoever would have gone through out of that tie, obviously it was Dortmund, I think they would have been seen as the weakest teams in the league. I just think that, or left in the competition, sorry. I just think that it's more the name of Barcelona which kind of gives the adds that kind of element of prestige to the quarterfinals a little bit, because, like I said earlier, there's some really potential like juicy ties in there. Like, we could be having an El Clasico potentially. Like, there's big names, and I think that kind of having Barcelona in there adds the allure of it, and kind of in terms of optics. But that side is it's very much beatable. Like, it's very much beatable.
Definitely. Right, let's move on to yesterday evening's results, which we'll start off with the big game. That was Atletico winning 2-1 against Inter, obviously taking the match into extra time, and then eventually they did win 3-2 on penalties. Some outstanding performances from the likes of Anton Griezmann, I thought, and Memphis Depay really shook it up. I mean, I'm sure we'll be also talking about Raquelme and his impact in this match as well. But Diego Simeone kind of referred to the match as being that he was glad that they were the underdog and they were written off by a lot of the media outlets, because he said the best thing that could have happened was teams writing them off. And I think, if you look at Atletico's kind of home record this season alone, they've been unbeaten. They haven't lost a game at the Wanda Metropolitano. They've in that kind of space as well in the Champions League. If you look at kind of the performance so far, they've only conceded 2 goals at home, and scoring 11 goals in the process. So you can kind of get an understanding why Atletico was so good at home last night. If I start off with yourself, Andrea, did you feel that Inzaghi paid too much respect to this Atletico Madrid side? And I think also an element of it was that he got maybe some of the substitutions wrong later on as the kind of game progressed in the manner that it did. But do you think it was that element of they weren't too sure how Atletico were going to approach it, and they didn't play to their natural game, I felt, at times as well?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. In particular, substitutions. I think he went a bit too defensive in the latter stages of the second half. I think in particular, I feel like Inter were looking like they win Serie A, where they've kind of closed off games by not conceding. I feel like they probably went into that game thinking that they could hold off Atletico and just settle for a draw and then they'd be through on the night. But I just think, yeah, they weren't as fluid as they normally are, and they lacked a lot of intensity up front as well. Kind of a bit slow as well. It was completely different Inter that we've seen in Serie A. But I just think he was a bit shocked with how Atletico did approach it. But overall, it was very reserved performance, and I do think it was partly to do with just the fact that they thought they could hold on to the draw, and I think the subs showed it near the end of the game. And in Serie A, it's worked a lot of times. They've shut off a lot of games like that.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him for trying, but I just think Atletico at home, like you said, they've been undefeated. It's a dangerous kind of scoreline to approach going into the final stage, and that's what happened. But the unfortunate thing for Inter is, again, in that first leg, they absolutely dominated and they should have got into a bigger lead, and that was the difference. Like going into Atletico only 1-0 up is not enough, and they paid for it in the end. And I think overall that it's an awkward scoreline as well, 1-0.
Yeah.
When you're winning 1-0, and we've seen it with Porto, we've seen it in quite a few games. It's an awkward scoreline, and I think Inter as well didn't know how to kind of approach it. And I guess it's kind of nerves of like you don't want to concede, but you want to kind of settle, and maybe you don't want to go as forward as normal. So I think it's a lot of balance in that they lacked. And overall, it's really disappointing because they had an opportunity to go through and rest a lot of players in Serie A, and they could have focused a lot on the Champions League this season as well. So it was a real big opportunity to really go far in it. Although it might have not been likely because of their performances, sometimes in the Champions League. But I just think with the whole point of resting Serie A, and they could have put all their energy in the Champions League, they could have gone really far. So it's a shame, but overall, it's just, Inzaghi has to learn from this. He has to learn the experience of kind of this type of scoreline and how to adapt. And I don't think he adapted well with his tactics, and that was key as well. And the substitutions for me, definitely, I think the substitutions were really poor timing, and it was too risky as well. Especially if they score, which they did, you go into extra time with a different defensive kind of team. You need to try and switch it up. So you just threw on Alexis Sanchez, So it's like it eventually, like you kind of have to second guess everything, and then it kind of ruins the cohesion of the team because now you have to kind of switch the side to be more attacking, but you've got like a defensive kind of team in on the pitch. So overall, I think there was quite a few mistakes from Inzaghi, which I feel like, although it's harsh to criticize him, it will be looked at because it's, like I said, it was a massive opportunity that they've let gone.
Ben, it did feel to me like Inter lost a bit of steam in terms of that moment. Certain players, for example, I mean, if we allude to, say, Marcus Thuram, he's only just come back from an injury. It wasn't one of his better performances in an Inter shirt. And, there was almost like too much time that was afforded to Atletico. And I think what I want to allude to is obviously there's a lot of stigma around Simeone and the style of football, but I actually thought Atletico played quite attractive football in the grand scheme of things. And when he needed to make those kind of tactical moves, like he did with bringing off Morata for Memphis Depay, and I think I forgot about Depay being at Atletico until that very moment, but he looks incredible. Like the way he was taking on his players, it just looks like, wow, what a serious bit of business that Atletico did in getting him in the first place, but also it's such an underrated squad, I feel sometimes. But yeah, did you get that kind of sense that Atletico are kind of changing and molding into a different Atletico that we kind of probably associated with maybe 5 years ago?
I think it's tricky because it's on paper, like it's still a very old squad, and I think it does need a bit of surgery come the summer. But I think that's maybe looking at it from the guise of like almost being a Premier League fan and sort of that the way that Atletico have operated over the last sort of however long Simeone's been there isn't necessarily the traditional way that you would operate a football club. There's a load of experience in that team. It's an older squad, but that know-how in these situations proved it. And I do think I think it's more about Simeone's like in-game adaptability to fashion out these chances and fashion out this kind of shift in momentum. And obviously Depay coming off a bit. Griezmann was fantastic during the whole game. He was just he's a joke of a footballer. Like just makes everything look so easy, so technically gifted, so clever. Deserved his goal, and then Depay as well. That was a brilliant finish. To kind of carve out the space in that congested penalty area and low and hard across the goalkeeper. And it was almost just Inter just looked a little bit timid, I think, at points, and a little bit toothless. Like I said, obviously Thuram's only just come back, so that didn't massively aid them, but there were just moments they started to go into the game in extra time. Actually, by that point, it was almost a little bit not too late because they had, it was a level game. It was going to penalties, but it just felt like they tried to capitalize on having not capitalize, but like I think they tried to take their opportunity in extra time. Maybe after Atletico had worked so hard to get back into the game, and Atletico did look a bit vulnerable. There were chances for Inter there, but they just didn't show that composure in front of goal. At all. There was that, there was a couple of chances where they broke away. Barella had that sort of one-on-one, but can you really call it that, where he sort of fired it straight down the throat of Oblak? There was another chance where I think it was Martinez tried to hold it up and just couldn't find the composure. There was crosses into the box in the first half of extra time. It just felt a little bit disjointed from Inter. And I think Atleti was one of those ones where, we were texting the group chat towards the end of the 90 minutes before we went into extra time. All the momentum was with them, and it just looked as if. And I just felt like when it went to penalties, with it being in the Metropolitano, with it being Simeone, with it being the experience they had, I think it always felt like they were going to win it. And I think it just shows that despite Inter getting to a final last year, and despite how dismissive they've been of basically everybody they've played in Serie A this season, there is still that little bit of a last bit of the hurdle to almost jump over with Inter to kind of become a really top, which they are a top team, but go to that next level in terms of the European elites. So it'll be a learning curve for them. It's still, a relatively. There's a lot of experience in there, but there's a lot of younger players coming through and kind of showing their worth as well, who are going to be there for a long time. I was just disappointed. I'm sure we'll come on to talk about Lautaro. I was really disappointed for him because, like we said, as kind of English fans who watch the Serie A, you kind of end up beating the drum for him way too much and trying to find yourself having to defend him way too much. But then he just, on the big stages where people who don't watch Inter Milan are watching it in the Champions League, and then he does that, it's just so unfortunate. So unfortunate.
Yeah, I saw the comments today, and it just felt like it reminisced me about the times when Cavani was written off as a kind of prolific striker, because everyone kind of talks about him at Napoli, but outside of Napoli, when it came to Champions League nights, he kind of didn't really pull on those kind of same performances. And Lautaro obviously had this amazing record going into this game, and obviously there would have been a lot more eyes on him, especially given his kind of renaissance since that World Cup after Argentina won it. And obviously he was more known for those misses in that World Cup. And obviously since that period, he's kind of pushed on as a striker. So Yeah, Andrea, that penalty obviously was a terrible penalty, kind of Roberto Baggio-esque, if we want to remind ourselves of a similar kind of style of penalty. But do you think that takes away a bit of confidence after that incident, or do you think he just kind of grows and brushes it off?
I think he's a type of player that should be back to it as normal. I just think I think I watched it. I think it was Ferdinand that kind of described him before he took the penalty, and you could see that when he had the ball before taking it, he was trying to do keepy ups and messed up, and he looked nervous, like it was a mess. I don't know if you saw that before he takes it. So, but again, it's just penalties anyone can miss. This is the thing, and it's just unfortunate he had to take the decisive one, and how bad it was as well. I almost did feel there was a bit of a bobble as well. I don't know if that was as I mean, it doesn't make a difference. Like, it was a poor penalty regardless. Like, he lent really back, so it was definitely going to go over. But it's a shame because it's like you said, people will see him and be like, oh no, he's terrible, but he is really good. It's just one of those moments that happens, and a lot of big players have done it. But I'm confident that he'll be back to taking pens again and being scoring goals again. I just think it's an unfortunate thing that's happened to him, but again. It's like what Ben said, it's always a learning curve, and I think he'll learn from these type of things as well. And it's not that long ago that he starts to be much more of a starter as well for Inter, because he was always in the shadows before. So he's starting to be like the main man in recent years. So yeah, and I still back him to be back, and next year we'll see again. So
Ben, if I kind of come to you then, Atletico, I don't think they should be underestimated. I don't think anyone's going to underestimate them, but it does feel that maybe there's an element that people think this is going to be an easy tie. I don't think it will be, for sure. But out of the teams that are left in this competition at this stage now, and we'll quickly kind of allude to the fact that although we're not going to go into detail, Borussia Dortmund did win against PSV courtesy of 2 goals, one from Jadon Sancho, who obviously is turning up for Borussia Dortmund and not for Man United these days and doing quite well, and then Marco Reus towards the end. But yeah, of those teams, Ben, obviously, who do you think is the outsiders and who do you think has got a genuine chance of maybe making a claim for this Champions League now?
I think it'll be tough for Dortmund. I really do. But I think obviously we spent a long time talking about this tie, and I actually felt that like the Atletico Inter tie was the battle of the two kind of outsiders for the tournament. I felt if Inter were to go through, I thought not many teams would want to come up against them, and I think I feel the same about Atleti. But I do feel that like the perception, we've talked about this a lot on this pod about the kind of perception around Inter Milan and the fact that we think based off of last season alone, and the performances they've been putting in this season of the team they built over the last couple of years under Inzaghi, that they should not be written off. And they got to a final last year, and I thought if they were to go through, I did think that they would cause problems for any team they came up against. But obviously they're out, so I think that kind of outsider tag almost falls naturally onto Atletico, because I think again, like people will be looking at it thinking it's an older team, They're always Atletico always tend to get through to the quarterfinals, but since they got to that sort of run of finals where they played Real, and as you mentioned, it was the last time there was a penalty shootout in a Champions League knockout game, which is a crazy stat to think about, really. Atletico haven't quite threatened in the same way in terms of going deep in the competitions, but it's almost there's a lot of like good narrative around Atleti. Like it's a bit of a swan song for Griezmann, or it feels like that anyway. It's an aging squad. It's and with Simeone as well, is this going to be his last chance to sort of maybe, it's not going to be his last chance, but is it going to be one of the best opportunities that he gets? And there's a lot of quality left in it. I think Atletico have got a better chance of doing something than Barcelona just because of the experience of the side, the know-how, and especially just having Simeone. Obviously, Xavi's on the way out in the summer anyway. Barcelona might have more individual quality, but I think as a team, no one will want to face Atletico. You think about Arsenal, for example, they really struggled to break down Porto, who made it really, really difficult for them. After what they've just been through, of course, Arsenal won't want to play City. They won't want to play Bayern Munich. They won't want to play Real Madrid. But they won't want to play Atletico either after what they've been through over 2 legs. So I think Atletico will be quietly confident with it, as long as it feels like they're the sort of team where, with what Simeone's done, and I know they've not been quite at the level since they won the title during lockdown since then. And I think the Spanish league as a whole has kind of suffered over the last few years. As long as Simeone is there, they've always got a chance. So I think that they should be considered outsiders. But there's some, like I've said a few times now, there's some cracking matchups potentially now. I think this is probably there was a lot of narrative around the fact that maybe the last 16 of the Champions League felt as if it was boring, felt as if it didn't have the qualities it has in previous years. But the cream has risen to the tops, and the cream has risen to the top, and the quarterfinals are going to be very tasty.
Yeah. And Andrea, do you kind of share those same sentiments as well?
Yeah, I agree with Ben. I think Atletico, for me, are like the underdogs. I think Dortmund, it's nice kind of fairy tale with Royce, but I don't see it. It'd be nice for him, but
for sure.
No, I think Atletico definitely for me.
Nah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, lads, we're going to leave it there and we're going to take a quick break, listener. But just before we do that, obviously the actual ties for the quarterfinals will be made as you're listening to this. Hopefully, potentially it's on Friday. So you will know more than we do as to who's going to face who in the next round of the Champions League. But join us after the break as we'll be talking about Premier League fixtures as well as FA Cup. Welcome back. And we're going to talk about first the Premier League fixtures. There's only 4 in total. And Ben, we might as well start with your very own Spurs, your way to Fulham, a resurgent Fulham, it's fair to say. I mean, they've been doing quite well. But yeah, how are you feeling ahead of this fixture on Saturday?
I feel good. Obviously, off the back of smashing Aston Villa on Sunday, our kind of direct top 4 rival, you have to take that momentum into this game. Obviously, we went out of the League Cup to Fulham at the start of the season, but that was a very different Tottenham. And although it was during the early days of Ange, we could definitely see where we were going. We'd only played 3 league games by that point, but we all felt connected. We all felt like this was the right guy. We all felt like we were going in the right direction. But the cup exit sort of just was a little bit of a blot on the paper, so to speak. But it was a much changed team. It was kind of all this other stuff. So it'll be a very different game this time around. I was doing a preview show for the game before we came and did this actually, and we're sort of talking about the fact that Fulham are safe. They've been playing good football. They've had good results. They've been a bit up and down. There was a period just before Christmas where they were on fire. They beat Forest and West Ham back-to-back 5-0, and then they went to Anfield and nearly got something, losing 4-3. And against the bigger teams at home, especially, they've actually been very unlucky. Obviously, they went to Man United away a few weeks ago and won. When I say unlucky, obviously, they beat Arsenal at home in the league. I remember the cup games against Liverpool. They were very unlucky to go out in that. They gave a really good account of themselves at Anfield and at Craven Cottage in the League Cup semi-finals. And I think that where they are in the league, they're kind of in that pocket of Chelsea, Newcastle, Wolves and Bournemouth, where that could interchange quite a lot between now and the end of the season. There are a good few points behind Chelsea, but you just never know with Chelsea. So I think they're playing with that little bit of freedom. They've had some new players come in who have really kind of made a difference. I've been really impressed with Muniz recently up front. I think obviously with Van de Ven getting injured against Aston Villa on Sunday, he's very unlikely to play tomorrow, although it doesn't seem very serious, which is a massive boost for us. Although it did give us kind of a first proper glimpse, should I say, of Dragusin. And I was impressed. There was a couple of sloppy moments on the ball here and there, but there was one in particular where Vicario fired it at him under pressure and had to deal with it. It was a bit like a hot potato. And it was always going to be tough. And I think he really grew into the game. So I was worried when he came on, but that was more about the worry of Van de Ven going off and kind of having to adjust in such a big game. But I think he's got the perfect centre-back alongside him in Romero to kind of guide him through it, because I think Romero has been outstanding this season. Has been, in my opinion, our player of the year. So I think for Dragusin to come in and play alongside him, I think he'll be. I think that's something that he will enjoy and something that Romero will almost relish in his kind of leadership role as well. It's going to be an interesting game because Spurs have got a run now of 4 or 5 games before this, almost like run of death of Arsenal, City, and Liverpool back to back, of Fulham away, Luton at home, and then we've got Nottingham Forest as well, and then we've got Newcastle. I think there's another game. It's West Ham away in there as well. So there's a real chance to put momentum together there for Spurs. And I think this is where it all starts. Like, I think the Villa game was massive for us because I think that there was someone that said at the start of the season on another Spurs podcast, they said they spoke to a Celtic fan and they said that, you'll be pleased in where you're going under Postecoglou. You'll be sort of encouraged about the football, and then you'll do it against a proper team, and then you'll think, wow. And it's almost like you have these moments and we've had that already this season, to be fair, like with some of the performances we put in at City and Arsenal away and Liverpool at home and Man United at home. But Villa, because they're a direct rival for us for top four, it felt like a real flag in the sand and felt like a real catalyst moment for the season, going into a proper crunch period and a real opportunity to put some momentum together. But we've got to go to Fulham and win. Obviously, with Villa playing on the Sunday, there's a chance to go into fourth and put the pressure on them going away to West Ham. And obviously, we've discussed now that fifth looks likely for Champions League anyway, but it's still not guaranteed. And United aren't out of the question. As much as I think they are for fourth, they might not be for fifth. So there is pressure still on it for sure. And I just think for Tottenham, it's about showing the steel that we've showed, showing the resilience, and again going and putting in a really impressive performance. Because I think there's been a massive mentality shift from Spurs this season, where we've got a point to prove, and I think that there's a bit of a narrative that Spurs are going to have this say in the title race, and I think that fans of other clubs who have got to play us in City, Arsenal, Liverpool are almost looking at us a little bit of like pushovers. But I think that comes from nerves about the fact they don't want to play us at that point of the season. And I think this is a real opportunity to build this momentum and show them why they won't want to play us. And me and Rory joked on Monday about Spurs potentially still being in a title race, and as much as I don't think we are, win our game in hand, win this. Arsenal are playing this weekend. Go 8 points behind them. Still got to play us.
I can see that narrative going on for every Monday night live stream. That's for sure.
100%. We're not going away, but it's it's a massive game on Saturday. I feel confident. Fulham will be tough, but I do think we'll put in another display. Use what we saw against Villa. We can be one of the most clinical, suffocating teams in the league, and I think, especially with the cup exit, we've got a bit of a point to prove. So I'm looking forward to Saturday, but obviously nerves, but I think we'll get the job done.
Yeah, we'll kind of summarise the other games just very quickly. So on Saturday, we've also got Burnley taking on Brentford. And then if we lose to Sunday, just quickly, West Ham taking on Aston Villa at home. But what I did want to talk about is Luton Town. It was yesterday evening, so Wednesday evening, where they took on Bournemouth. And Bournemouth had their kind of Istanbul moment as they were 3-0 down at half-time. And unfortunately, Luton Town got pegged back and lost the game 4-3, courtesy of some amazing goals, Ben. But I think the kind of story here is really this collapse from Luton, which we were all kind of slightly gutted about, but it also kind of harms their survival chances now. And it feels like, as much as we've been talking about how great they've been in terms of aesthetics and the way they go about approaching games, it's about getting results at this end of the business season now. And are Luton Town kind of starting to lose that and potentially drag themselves back in terms of maybe being relegation favourites now?
Well, they have to win this game. They have to beat Forest. Forest are the other team that you can feel, you can sense that could get sucked in. They've obviously got this points deduction hanging over their head potentially as well. Forest, we don't know when that's going to come into effect, or we don't even know if it's going to happen. So this is a massive opportunity for Luton, because I think, as a podcast, we've always, and I think the general football landscape have backed Luton and have got behind them and really wanted them to do well. Especially, if you use this game as kind of, or the Bournemouth game as a microcosm, in the sense that, this was the replayed fixture of when Tom Lockyer collapsed and all that kind of stuff. The kind of story of their season is just crazy for kind of what's happened to them, and the expectation that they could really get themselves in a position to stay up, and that would be an amazing story. They've been clearly much better than Sheffield United and Burnley, but I just think it's when you look at their what happened to them on Wednesday. Although it's not been that severe, they've had moments in games against the top sides where they've got themselves into positions and just let the points go. And I think as much as Luton fans will be enjoying the ride in the Premier League, and all power to them for doing that, they should relish every single moment they get, because it's a special feeling. It must be, following your team in the Premier League. What was it? Non-league to Premier League in 10 years. It's an amazing football story. But I do think there's a portion of Luton fans that are almost just like, we've got a real opportunity here, and we're sort of throwing it away. Like Aston Villa last weekend, and I know it's Aston Villa. Like Villa are, despite what Tottenham did to them, Villa are a very good team. And, they were 2-0 up. Luton got back in the game 2-2 and then conceded a last-minute goal. They lost 1-0 to Spurs at home. They lost 4-3 to Arsenal. They lost 2-1 to City. They actually got a point against Liverpool at home. So it's always been in these massive games, it's just been by one goal. Chelsea, they were 3-0 down, but came back to 3-2. It's incredible kind of some of the moments that they've had in these games of either throwing it away or coming so close. And it's just like, it must be just a nervous like roller coaster ride for their fans. But I do think that I don't think it's going to affect them too much. And I mean, to be 3-0 up at half time and lose 4-3, it's bound to affect you a little bit. But I think with the adversity that they have had to face, and just using Tom Lockyer as an example, and obviously it was amazing to see him at the game the other night. And I do think there's this with things like that, and just with the whole narrative around them, there is this collective sense of belief. And I do think they'll take that into Saturday, because Forest are vulnerable. Forest, like I said, they're really not out of this. And I think if Luton win, they'll go level on points with Forest. I'm not sure on the goal difference situation, so I'm not sure if they go above them. But it really, really sucks Forest in. But if Forest get a victory, then it just the task becomes even tougher for Luton. And they'll, as harsh as it is to say, and I really don't want to say it, but we kind of have to treat them the same as some of the other teams, and they'll only have themselves to blame, really. But then it's not that. Again, even that's not that simple. It's such a hard one with Luton, because you want to give them the praise and you want to talk about the story and the narrative, but their fans must be kicking themselves at points in situations they've got into in these games. And they played Bournemouth off the park. Bournemouth Bournemouth have, like, obviously we were talking about Fulham previewing the Spurs game. Bournemouth have been a bit like Fulham in the sense that they've had these real points of momentum during the season and been very, very good for bursts, and then have fallen off a cliff massively. And that's what's happened to Bournemouth. So to be 3-0 up against them at half-time, playing brilliant football, Barkley's goal, quality. Ogbene's goal arriving at the back post for the second one, a lovely move with Doughty putting it across the face of the goal. Like they played them off the park. And then, to be fair, there was 3 out of the 4 Bournemouth goals were quality. Like Solanke's goal was unbelievable to make it 3-1. But it felt like as soon as it went to 3-1, it just felt nervy for Luton, and unfortunately it got the better of them. 2 amazing goals from Semenyo as well. Such power was, I can't remember if it was the winner and the equaliser, to be fair, hit with both real power, and he's been really impressive this season as well. But this is probably Luton's biggest game of the season, I think, against Forest at home. They'll be looking at Everton above them as well, and I think Everton have got a horrible run towards the end where they've got to play Luton, Forest, Sheffield United, and
Arsenal on the last day, I think.
Arsenal on the last day, but there is a period in like April, March, towards the end of March, where they've got to play all of the 4 teams around them consecutively. So there will be a chance for Luton to kind of gain points back if they don't pick up 3 points on Saturday. But it just feels like it's massive, and it's good that they're at home as well. Kenilworth Road, like their fans they're not going to lose them. It's kind of like what we were saying about Arsenal earlier. Their fans are going to be behind them the whole way, and it just feels like they need this home game against a team that are down there and just give it a right good go, because Kenilworth Road will be rocking and they need to make the most of that. So it's a huge game. I think they'll win on Saturday. I think they'll harness that kind of energy and that spirit from the other night and say, we're not going to let this happen again. This is a massive game. And I think this is the sort of period of the season where we've seen some of these great escapes before, and it won't necessarily be a great escape for Luton, because it's not like they were bottom and they've clawed all these points back, but now is the catalyst moment. Go, like, this is where your season clicks into gear, and they've had these such nearly moments, and it's time to kind of put those right now. And I do think they'll start with that on Saturday, and I think they'll beat Forest, because I do think Forest are vulnerable.
Whilst I do remember, obviously Ross Barkley did miss out on an England place for the upcoming friendlies. The kind of surprise packages, I suppose. We've got Jordan Henderson returning into the fold, surprise. And then we've got the likes of Lewis Dunk as well as Anthony Gordon also appearing for the England squad. Ben, obviously you're shaking your head. We know Jordan Henderson was always going to make it, but do you feel for Ross Barkley as well?
Yeah, I feel for Ross Barkley, and I feel like it would have been great to give him the opportunity. I didn't think he was going to get in. I just think with the baffling thing about Henderson for me is that it's not like there's not enough leaders. You've got Harry Kane, you've got Declan Rice. I know Declan Rice is young, but he's played so much football. You know, he's played in a tournament final for England and was wrongly taken off. And I think that's why we ended up losing that final to Italy. So he's shown how important he is. He's massively stepped up for Arsenal this season and really embraced that huge moment. He's playing in the Champions League quarterfinals. You know, you've got Kyle Walker at the back, you've got John Stones, you've got Harry Maguire, you've got Jordan Pickford, who've all been there. Like, are you going to really benefit that much from having Henderson in and around the place? Because I think like that's the only justification that you can come towards for why he's been picked, because it's not based on football. Because I mean, he was getting picked while he was in Saudi anyway, and it just feels like having this move to Ajax has sort of given him that. It's almost just been a bit of a lifesaver for him, and it shouldn't be like that. It's just, and I feel like these friendlies were a real opportunity. And I know, obviously, this is the last set of. Well,
Yeah.
I imagine they'll play some international games before the tournament starts. Anyway, they'll probably play a couple of friendlies, but
Probably,
this
yeah.
is the squad. This is the last squad that will get picked before the Euros. And to have him in there indicates that he's definitely going to be in there for the tournament. And I just don't understand it. Like we saw a few years ago with Bellingham for Euro 2020 or Euro 2021, that he obviously was picked. He didn't play any games, but just to have him there, that exposure for the tournament. And I'm not saying that Kobbie Mainoo should definitely go to the Euros or just as an example.
Yeah.
But I just felt like it was an opportunity to give someone like that, who could end up being the future of England's midfield along with Bellingham and Rice, that chance. They're friendly games against Belgium and Brazil. Go and show what you're made of. Because I feel like we've got enough leaders. I'm not going to massively kick off about Henderson being in the Euro squad. I don't think he should be there, but it's a conversation that is just becoming incredibly tiresome, and we've been having every single squad announcement for the last year, and we know that Southgate isn't going to change. Some strange principles and some very strange stuff that came out of today's squad announcement, obviously with the Ben White stuff as well. It's just odd. Yeah, it's disappointing, and I'm disappointed for Ross Barkley. But I think deep down I knew that he wasn't going to get picked, but we know that Southgate doesn't always pick it based on form. And again, like just to finish quickly on that, like I do find it. You're in a difficult position as an international manager. You can't just pick players based on form. That's not. You can't do that. Or sorry, I mean, as in you can't pick a whole squad based on form. But there has to be a balance, and I just feel like in terms of forget Henderson's leadership. That midfield, those 5 midfielders that have been picked, 4 midfielders other than Henderson that have been picked: Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, James Maddison, and Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher can do what Jordan Henderson can do. Declan Rice can do what Jordan Henderson could do, and then some. Obviously, James Maddison and Jordan Henderson are different players. Yeah, and then you've got Jude Bellingham, and you've got Jude Bellingham in there as well. So it's just like you're not losing anything by not having him there, in my opinion. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a discussion for another pod, maybe pre-Euros, that's for sure. But yeah, quickly wanted to allude to the FA Cup matches and give Ben a bit of a breather. So Wolverhampton Wanderers taking on Coventry on Saturday, and we've also got Man City taking on Newcastle, whilst on Sunday we've got Chelsea taking on Leicester City and Man United taking on Liverpool. Andrea, any of those games take your fancy?
Obviously, the Man United Liverpool game is going to be an epic game. I back Liverpool still, even though Man United, that's going to be like a cup final for them. Let's be honest. But Wolverhampton Coventry, obviously, there's kind of like local, I guess. Ish. Maybe not as rivalry as others like West Brom, for example, but that'll be quite an interesting one as well. But yeah, obviously the tie of the round is Man United Liverpool. It'll be a fascinating game because Man United literally have to just go for this and see if they can win a trophy this season. But you got to back Liverpool with the confidence they've got, and they're going to be wounded as well from that Man City draw, which they should have won. So yeah, I expect them to win.
100%. And yeah, I would say, Ben, looking at this is probably Chelsea's last chance of maybe having an easy-ish run to a final. So yeah, do we fancy them against Leicester City?
I think you have to, but I mean, with the form that Leicester have been in, I know they've sort of let the lead slip a bit in the Championship. Chelsea aren't, it's not a walk in the park by any stretch. And I don't know if you saw Vardy's comments before the game today, where he was sort of saying that Chelsea are a good side on their day, but we know that we can, for paraphrasing slightly, basically said we feel like we can go there and do them, which I'm not Jamie Vardy's biggest fan, but I did enjoy that. And I think that'll be interesting. But I think Andrea's right. Like with the United Liverpool game, this is United season over if they don't win this. So they
100%.
have to go for this. And I think obviously Andrea alluded to Liverpool will want to not put right like last weekend, but like you said, there'll be an element of that's still stuck in the teeth for Liverpool. But it seems like they've taken their anger out on Sparta Prague tonight anyway. But they wouldn't. I don't think Liverpool fans, especially, could have asked for a better game after that City one to go and play United at Old Trafford to really stick the knife in. Because watching United against Everton last weekend, and Adam, we've said so many times, me, you, and Rory on the pod on a Monday about there's no point talking about Man United because we'll literally be having the same conversations, win, lose, or draw every single week. And I think that I'm looking forward to Monday because I think we could be having a very interesting conversation about this game. So I think that's definitely the pick. City Newcastle, I think, is pretty straightforward. And then Wolves Coventry. I think obviously Wolves missing Neto. Neto's injured again. Coventry haven't exactly been in great form in the league. It's quite a surprise they've got this far. Obviously, it was only because they got through against Maidstone.
Yeah.
Which was obviously a shame because could you imagine if it was Maidstone against Wolves?
That.
Because didn't George Elokobi used to play for Wolves?
Yeah, he's played for Wolves.
That would have been an amazing narrative. It's like almost a bit of a shame. No disrespect to Coventry, but a bit of a shame that they're there.
Not at all.
But and it'd be amazing to see Cov get to a FA Cup semi-final. But I think that it's gonna. I can't wait for that United Liverpool game. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Cannot wait to kind of review those games. That's for sure on Monday night's live stream. Andrea, we're going to go into Serie A as well because we've got some fascinating games this weekend. We'll start off with your very own Fiorentina because they take on Atalanta at a time that Atalanta are starting to pick up some important form going into this part of the season. Obviously, they've had quite a fixture list backlog, I'd say, where it's been quite tight, been quite difficult for them because they've had some really toughish opponents. But yeah, they're taking on your very own Fiorentina, who've been, it's fair to say, a very mixed season. You keep on ranting about them on TikTok. How do you see this game panning out?
I think it's the complete opposite of like games not looking forward to for me. But no, I see Atalanta winning comfortably. To be honest, I just think they hit form. They're up there for the positions of like 4th, 5th. And also with Fiorentina, I think they're 2 behind now. So I feel like the forms might end up declining, especially if they lose. I think they're already out of it anyway. And another loss to Atalanta, for example, would just confirm it even more. And I just think their kind of Serie A performances will start to decline. I think that's the feel I get, unless they can somehow pull off a miracle and win. But I don't see the consistency. And that for me is where it lies, especially in 90 minutes. There's not consistency in the performances, whereas Atalanta look way more of a unit. They're starting to hit form again. Although the only thing I'd say about Atalanta is that we do have a good record against them, and at home they've lost a few games. Like that Bologna one was massive; they lost at home. So I wouldn't rule us out completely, even though we're not on the best of form and our record against them. But ultimately, the only thing I'd say for Fiorentina is that it's a game they need to win. I mean, we say this every week, but this is a game they need to definitely win. But I just don't see it. I see Atalanta comfortably winning. There's a lot of fans, people, they say like when it's their own team, they'll just always side with them, at least a draw or win. But like, I'm honest. If I say Atalanta a favourite, like, yeah.
Do you at least take heart from the fact that Fiorentina gave Roma a good game, and if it wasn't for the first half where they possibly weren't as clinical as maybe you wanted them to be, if they can just show that in one of those games, then, that makes your kind of season turn on its head, right?
Yes, I would say so. The only thing I would say again, though, is that we've lacked a 90-minute consistent performance. That's the only thing I'd say. Because, again, that first half was unbelievable, but then the second half was non-existent until Roma got back into it. And it's a similar pattern. Today we saw it as well in the Conference League game, like, did nothing. And eventually they conceded and then they had to react quickly. And it's just like, yeah, it's not consistent in 90 minutes. Like you can't do 10 minutes of great performance, half an hour great performance, and then you switch off because it's risky. But I would say I do agree though that first half in Roma against Roma was very impressive. But we've had a few halves like that, and to be honest, it's just false hope. That's how I see it. Like I'm being. It sounds harsh, but it's true. Like I don't know. I've watched them too many times to be um, convinced that it's a turn of the corner, because ultimately they're just going to lose the next game. Whatever the consistency is, like 1 or 2 wins and then lose again. For the last 3 years, that's been Fiorentina.
Yeah, true. Well, I'll quickly go through the fixtures because we have got one of the other big games to talk about. So if you're listening to us on a Friday or Friday evening, you are going to be delighted that you have Empoli versus Bologna. So make sure you tune in for that. That's 7:45 kickoff. But if we move into Saturday, we've got Monza taking on Calgary, Udinese versus Torino. A big 6-pointer here, Andrea Salernitana taking on Lecce. And then the late kickoff on Saturday is Frosinone at home to Lazio, a Lazio side that don't have Maurizio Sarri anymore. And that was a kind of strange bit of events that took place earlier this week. Maurizio Sarri's final words to the Lazio squads were, "I see you don't follow me anymore. Many things have changed since last season, so I've decided to resign. If I was the problem, then you can now try to still shake up the season." So, yeah, pretty much parking his players under the bus for what he kind of interprets as them not really fighting his cause. We did speak about this offline and said it did seem inevitable, but we didn't think it was going to happen this soon. Yeah, what's your kind of initial thoughts on the kind of resignation by Maurizio Sarri?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's expected, but it wasn't expected at this time. But it just sounded like it's just typical Sarri. Like it just reminded me of like the League Cup final when he just walked off, walked out the tunnel, came
Yeah,
back. Like he probably did that a few times before eventually he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to quit now." He probably did that
yeah,
a few times before he fully decided. But no, it's just shocking, and I think I've mentioned this before. But the one thing I would say is that they had the opportunity to be they're in the semi-final of the Italian Cup. You would have thought he would have stuck around for that at least. But Sarri, I guess he's at an age and start in his career where he's just going to do what he feels is right for him. But again, it was inevitable because it was definitely going to happen in the end of the season anyway. But it's going to be very weird to see Lazio without Sarri on the bench, because I feel like he's been such a figure there. I guess in terms of
yeah.
like he just stands out as the manager there for them. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the Lazio players do respond after those comments as well, because that is a lot of shade on them. But
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, he didn't see eye to eye with the likes of Luis Alberto for one. So I'm sure he cannot wait to see the back end of Maurizio Sarri, that's for sure. Quickly move into Sunday's fixtures. We've got Juventus at home to Genoa, Hellas Verona at home to AC Milan. Obviously, we talked about your very own Viola there, Andrea, but Roma at home to Sassuolo, who did get a result last weekend, need to follow it up with another result subject to the other games. But the big game, obviously, is going to be Inter taking on Napoli at home after their Champions League exploits this week. Massive game needed for Inter. Andrea, how do you see this going? Because Napoli are very much in the kind of dark as well. They're not in great form themselves.
Yeah, I think, to state the obvious, but I just feel like Inter will just win in the end, like maybe like a 1-2-0. I just think it's going to be a natural response to the disappointment of midweek. And Napoli, again, unpredictable. They lack a lot of ideas in a lot of games they've played recently as well. And I feel like they are quite behind to catch up in at least the Champions League places as well. So I do think overall Inter will just, they know what they're doing. They're the team that's organised the most as well. They're home as well. So yeah, I just can't see them losing. I see them comfortably winning.
Yeah, I think that's going to be another great game, Ben, for us to review on Monday night's live stream. But with that, all I'm going to do is stop sharing and say, join us on the other side, as we'll be doing some tic-tac-toe, and it'll be Andrea taking on Ben. And we are back for our favorite section of the podcast, and that is Tika Taka Toe. And we have got Andrea as a guest. He's going to be taking on Ben, who's undefeated so far with his 100% record against Rory. So, yeah, for those that are listening to us right now, at the top of Tika Taka Toe, we've got Ajax, Bayern Munich, and Manchester United. And on the sides, we've got Manchester City, Belgium, and Serbia. So fascinating kind of combinations there. I'm going to now make it bigger screens for both Andrea and Ben to be able to see what the hell is there. And I'm going to flip a coin and say heads or tails, Andrea, seeing as you're the guest this week.
Heads.
Okay, and it's tails. So Ben, do you want to go first or do you want to go second?
First, tails never fails, Andrea. Always got to tails.
You should have said this before we started. No.
It's mind games. Yeah, I'll go first. This is horrific.
Yeah, I'll agree.
It's. I mean, immediately I'm looking at. What am I looking at? Bayern, Serbia. I'm a bit stumped. I think I feel like I want to get Serbia out of the way, but obviously the best thing to usually do is go for the middle. But I'm struggling to think of a Bayern Belgium player. So I will go. That makes me think that there's a really obvious one.
Well, I'm not going to say because it's me that's kind of on the outside looking in. So let's see
Bayern
where we're going to go, boys.
This could really come back to bite me with Bayern Belgium. I'm going to go for Ajax Serbia, and I'll go for Dusan Tadic. I've gone rogue, bottom left.
I think that's a very good shout, though, and he is in. So,
come on,
Andrea, what's your next move?
I'm convinced that there was a Belgium centre back that played for Bayern like a while ago, but I can't think of the name.
There definitely is.
I think I might know it. Right, Belgium Bayern. Van Bunyan, his name I think is. I can't remember. I think it's something like that.
I'm going to give it to you because that's the one that I do know. It's Daniel Van Boyten.
I'm thinking Boyten. Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry.
Well done, Andrea.
I remember him.
Great shout.
I'll give it to you, given that you were trying to pronounce it. So yeah,
I remembered him from like FM, like 2004 or something 5, and like
he was insane, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Coming up to me, it was one of those, like, he was always someone that you packed on like Ultimate Team as well that would just get discarded straight away.
Yeah,
that's a great shout. I will go with I'll go with Ajax and Belgium, and I'll keep it so middle left. I'll keep it on the theme of Tottenham, and there's two choices I could go for, but
of course.
I'll go for one of my favourite ever Spurs defenders, and I'll go for Jan Vertonghen.
I thought it was going to be Jan Vertonghen. Jan Vertonghen, well done. So, Andrea, does he gamble? And does he go with Ajax and Man City, or does he go somewhere else? Let's see. Andrea, all in your court, mate.
I might have to because I can't. I'm really drawing blanks with City Ajax. I feel like there should be someone obvious, but after getting that Bayern Munich one, this looks bad on me probably. But then Ben, I don't know if he's playing mind games. He probably knows or he doesn't know. I don't know.
I'm not gonna give anything away.
Just to put pressure on both of you, I know at least one.
I think I've got one for City Ajax.
Great. That's great.
Just go for the easy one, Andrea. Go Man City and Man United. Call his bluff.
I think I might have to, but I'll just have a few more thoughts on it. I'm just thinking in recent times.
Surely you'd want to go for Bayern City though, or Bayern Serbia, because then you're on a Man United City doesn't really help you.
No, of course it doesn't.
I've put the pressure on.
Right. I've actually drawn blanks here.
I've got a good one for Bayern City as well, actually. I just thought of.
Yeah.
I can't even think of Bayern City.
Really?
Yeah.
There's not loads. There can't, I don't think there's loads.
I feel like there should be, but I'm stumped for now. I'm going to have to just go with Man United, Serbia, Matic.
Nemanja Matic.
He's probably got it, but...
There we go. Right, Ben, can you complete it?
I think there's someone that's popped out into my mind, but now I'm doubting whether they played for Ajax, but I'm going to gamble and go for Nigel de Jong.
Good shout.
Yeah, he must
Good
have.
shout. That was the one that I had. So Nigel de
have.
Jong. And you have won it. Well done. Well done. Should we reveal the other missing players? Just
can I just
so we
say,
can see some
can I
examples?
guess that the City buy? I was going to go for Javi Martinez for City buy-in.
Yeah.
Did he play for City or am I making that
I don't think he played for City, though.
For some reason... Oh, I was thinking of Javi Garcia.
He didn't play for City, no. But yeah, Bayern and Man City, there's Jerome Boateng is what has come up, but I would have gone for Leroy Sané. He's the obvious one.
It literally didn't enter my mind once.
Man United and Belgium, I would have gone for that classic Fellaini, Marianne Fellaini. Yeah. And obviously Man United and Man City, you've had so many down the years, haven't we? But yeah, for Bayern Munich and Serbia, we have Pantovic. So I never expected that one, that's for sure. But yeah, well done to Ben for winning that one. That was a fantastic effort there. So, right, we will exit out of there. And we're going to conclude the show, boys. What a fantastic episode that was. So massive thanks to you both for being on the pod. Andrea, we will bid you farewell, but many thanks for being on the pod. If there is anyone that would like to check out your work, in particular on TikTok, how can they find you?
Yes, so you can find me on TikTok as the Fiorentina fan. Pretty much do reactions of Fiorentina, but also a bit more of Serie A and football in general. Starting to do some lives now as well on Wednesdays, which Adam does join. So catch us on there as well. Yeah. And some lives as well during the Fiorentina matches as well, like pre-halftime, post-match live reactions as well. But yeah, enjoying life on TikTok. I've opened Instagram, but so if you are on Instagram as well, it's the official Fiorentina fan, because I think the Fiorentina fan's taken on there. But yeah, you'll find me on there as well. But mainly I'm more active on TikTok. So if you, follow on there.
Yeah, definitely check out his content. And Ben, you're on Endless Podcasts. Obviously you did say you were on one prior, but yeah, where can our general public find you as well?
Yeah, you can find me a bit like Andrea, really. Main place I do most of my stuff is on TikTok. Ben Talks Football on there, mainly Spurs stuff, but also general Premier League, general football stuff, everything that's going on. You can listen to the Daring and Doing Tottenham podcast, which we started a few weeks ago, which is going really well. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple. So if you want to watch us on YouTube, go and subscribe over there. Spotify and Apple as well. Popping up on various Tottenham podcasts, The Fighting Cock, and The Lab as well, which is another sort of sister podcast of The Fighting Cock that we've got big plans for. So stay tuned for that, really. And thanks for having me on. I'd love to come on and defend my crown on Tiki-Taka next week.
Maybe next week, Ben, it'll be against me. You never know. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. But yeah, make sure you check out these boys. Some seriously decent content. And to you that are watching on YouTube, give us all the likes, abuse us with the comments. I'm sure you won't. And review. That's the most important thing. We need reviews on the various different platforms because that helps the algorithm. But more importantly, if you do want to check us out, you can check us out on TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. You can also do likewise on Instagram. But if you're focusing on us on a Twitter account angle, then it's at Italian Anglopod. That's the difference. And that's the one that always screws us up when we're trying to say it at this point of the show. But I am going to see you out with a quote from Maurizio Sarri. Obviously, yeah, we bid you farewell for now. I'm sure we will see you again, Maurizio. But we'll kind of call it out with this quote. I have won Serie B, Serie C, Serie D, like the Championship, League One and League Two here in England. Ciao, ciao, everyone, and have a great weekend.